The rain came down in sheets that night, not the gentle kind that washes streets clean, but the punishing sort that drives men indoors and leaves only the desperate outside. It drummed against the overflowing gutters of Metro City, a staccato rhythm that nearly drowned out the squeal of tires as the police cruiser fishtailed around the corner. Inside the car, Officer Delgado tightened his grip on the wheel, his knuckles whitening beneath the streetlight's orange glow. "We got him now," he muttered to his partner, though the words were swallowed by the storm up ahead. A lone figure stumbled through the alley, his hoodie soaked black with rain. Marcus Johnson didn't run so much as flail against the weather, each step sending up sprays of filthy water from the potholes. He'd been walking home from the 24-hour laundromat when the blue lights appeared in his periphery. Now his chest burned with the kind of fear that turns bones to water. The cruiser's spotlight exploded across the alley, pinning Marcus like a specimen under glass. He turned just in time to see Delgado emerge from the vehicle, his service weapon already drawn. On the ground now, the command tore through the rain, sharp as gunfire. Marcus raised his hands, his mouth working soundlessly as the cold pavement rushed up to meet him. Delgado's knee found the small of Marcus's back before he'd fully collapsed, driving the air from his lungs in a pained whoosh. The cuffs bit into his wrists with metallic finality. "Marcus Johnson," the officer panted, his breath hot against the boy's ear. "You're under arrest for grand theft auto." Marcus turned his face from the pavement, his cheeks scraping against wet concrete. "I didn't." The knee pressed harder. "Save it for the judge, college boy." Rainwater pooled in Marcus's eyelashes as he was hauled upright. Through the downpour, he could see the Lexus idling halfway down the block, its driver's side door hanging open like a broken jaw. The car he'd supposedly stolen, the car he'd never touched. Delgado marched him toward the cruiser, the officers, fingers digging bruises beneath Marcus's sleeves. As they passed the squad car's hood, the spotlight caught something in the gutter, Marcus's biology textbook, its pages swelling with rainwater. The one he'd been carrying when the chase began, the one now being ground beneath Delgado's boot as he shoved Marcus into the back seat. The door slammed with the sound of a judge's gavel. Inside the cage, Marcus pressed his forehead to the cold plexiglass, watching his breath fog the divider. Delgado slid behind the wheel, his partner snapping photos of the abandoned Lexus. The radio crackled to life. "Unit 47. Confirmed suspect in custody." Delgado keyed the mic without taking his eyes off Marcus in the rearview. One less thug off the streets. The engine roared to life. As the cruiser pulled away, Marcus watched his textbook disappear beneath the tires, its pages tearing free to swirl down the storm drain. Like evidence, like reasonable doubt, like the truth. The siren whooped once, not for him, but to clear traffic. Through the rain-streaked window, Marcus caught glimpses of his reflection superimposed over the passing storefronts. His own face stared back at him, warped by water and glass, already becoming someone else's story. Somewhere beyond the storm, his mother would be pacing their apartment, her phone clutched in white-knuckled hands. She'd warned him about walking alone at night. She'd warned him about cops like Delgado. But most of all, she'd warned him about the stories people would tell about a black boy in the wrong place. The cruiser hit a pothole, jolting Marcus's teeth. Together, Delgado chuckled. "Buckle up, kid. It's gonna be a bumpy ride." The station house loomed ahead, its barred windows glowing yellow in the storm. Marcus closed his eyes as they passed beneath the security camera, its red light blinking like a silent witness. This wasn't how it happened. This wasn't how it happened at all. But in 12 hours when he stood before Judge Winslow in Department 43, none of that would matter. Unless he could make it matter. Unless he could rewrite the story they'd already started writing for him. The brakes squealed as they entered the booking bay. The last thing Marcus saw before the door swallowed him whole was his own reflection in the station house glass. Not a scared kid anymore, but something harder. Something dangerous. Something the system wasn't ready for. Asterisk. The fluorescent lights of Department 43 hummed like angry wasps as Marcus shuffled into court, his shackles scraping against the polished floor. The air smelled of industrial cleaner and stale ambition. At the defendant's table, a single wooden chair waited, its legs bolted to the floor. Just like everything else in this room, Judge Harold Winslow didn't bother looking up from his paperwork when Marcus entered. The judge's robe hung off his shoulders like a funeral shroud, its black fabric swallowing what little light dared touch him. "Case number 44,721. The bailiff announced. "The People versus Marcus Johnson." Prosecutor Richard Vance stood with the ease of a man who'd already won. His suit probably costs more than Marcus's entire apartment building. "Your Honor," Vance began, his voice smooth as oil, "the state will prove this defendant stole a 2021 Lexus RX 450H and lead officers on a reckless chase through downtown." Marcus, public defender, a twitchy man with coffee stains on his tie, started to rise. But Marcus placed a hand on his arm. The motion made Vance's eyebrow twitch. "Your Honor," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the handcuffs cutting into his wrists. "I'll be representing myself." The courtroom exhaled all at once. The reporter dropped her pen. The bailiff's fingers hovered over his taser. Even Winslow finally looked up, his eyes narrowing behind wireframe glasses. Vance actually chuckled. "Your Honor, surely we're not entertaining THIS farce." Winslow leaned forward, his bench creaking under the weight of his disdain. "Mr. Johnson, this isn't traffic court. The charges you're facing carry 15 years. Marcus met his gaze. "I understand, Your Honor." He reached into the cardboard box at his feet, the one the jail had let him fill with law books. "But the Sixth Amendment guarantees my right to self-representation. Ferretta v. California, 1975. A muscle in Winslow's jaw pulsed. The silence stretched so long Marcus could hear the stenographer's stomach growl. "Fine," Winslow snapped. "But one outburst, one procedural misstep, and I'll revoke this privilege faster than you can say contempt." Of course he turned to Vance. "Call your first witness." Vance straightened his tie with a flourish. "The prosecution calls Officer Daniel Delgado." Delgado swaggered to the stand like he owned it, his uniform straining over linebacker shoulders. When he raised his hand to swear the oath, Marcus noticed his knuckles were freshly scabbed. "Officer Delgado," Vance purred, "described the events of November 15th. Delgado launched into his rehearsed story, the stolen Lexus, the foot chase, Marcus resisting violently. Every lie landed like a hammer on Marcus's future. The jury ate it up, especially the retired schoolteacher in front, who nodded along, like she was watching Law and Order. When Vance finished, he shot Marcus a smirk. "Your witness." Marcus stood slowly. He opened a manila folder with deliberate calm, even as his pulse thundered in his ears. The courtroom leaned forward as one. "Officer Delgado," Marcus began, "you testified you first saw me driving the Lexus at 9:23 p.m. Delgado crossed his arms. "That's right." Marcus pulled out a sheet of paper. "This is your patrol car's GPS log for that night." He walked it to the clerk, who passed it to Winslow. "It shows you were at a Dunkin' Donuts on 5th Avenue from 9:15 to 9:38 p.m. The heir left the room." Delgado's fingers dug into the witness stand. Vance was halfway to objecting when Marcus continued. "Receipt number 4472, a cruller and large coffee. Paid for with your badge discount." The schoolteacher juror's mouth fell open. Delgado lunged forward. "That's bull, officer." Winslow's gavel cracked like a gunshot. "Another outburst and I'll hold you in contempt." He studied the GPS log. His lips pressed into a bloodless line. "Mr. Vance, approach." At the bench, the whispered argument grew heated. Marcus caught fragments ... chain of custody ... and ... fruit of the poisonous tree ... Vance's neck turned splotchy red. When they returned, Vance's smile looked stapled on. No further questions. Marcus wasn't done. He placed a second document before Delgado. "This is your overtime slip for that night. You claimed you were in active pursuit from 9 p.m. to midnight." He paused, "But the Duncan security footage shows you in line at 9:32. Delgado's nostrils flared. "Aye, and this," Marcus said, producing a third sheet, "is the Metro PD policy manual. Page 142. Falsifying government records is a Class E felony." The jury box erupted in murmurs. The schoolteacher looked ready to spit. Winslow's gavel came down hard. "That's enough. Mr. Johnson, you're not here to lecture. I'm here for the truth, Your Honor." Marcus turned back to Delgado. "One last question, officer. When you arrested me, did you find car keys on my person?" Delgado hesitated just a beat too long. "No." "Or the Lexus key fob?" "No." "Or any stolen property?" "No." But Marcus nodded. "Thank you. No further questions." As Delgado stormed off the stand, Marcus caught the eye of juror number 8, a young black man who'd been staring at his shoes all morning. Now he sat up straight, his eyes bright with something dangerous. Hope. Vance called his next witness a forensic tech who claimed Marcus' fingerprints were all over the Lexus. But when Marcus approached for cross-examination, he carried a single piece of paper. "Ms. Reynolds," he said gently, "this report says you lifted prints from the steering wheel, gear shift and door handle, correct?" The tech nodded. "Standard procedure." Marcus tilted his head. "Then why didn't you compare them to the owner's prints?" Mr. Whitaker testified. "He drove that car daily for a year." Vance shot up. "Objection, relevance." Winslow waved him off. "Overruled," answered the question. The tech fidgeted. "We ... didn't see the need." Marcus let that hang in the air for 3 full seconds. "Then Ms. Reynolds, how many prints did you find on the rearview mirror?" "None." "The seat belt buckle?" "None." "The radio controls?" She swallowed hard. "None." Marcus nodded like this made perfect sense. So the only prints were on surfaces someone might touch, say, while being wrongfully arrested near the car. Vance's objection drowned out her answer. Winslow called for a recess, but the damage was done. As the jury filed out, Marcus saw them glancing at him with new eyes, not as a defendant, as a victim. The bailiff led Marcus to a holding room where his mother waited, her face lined with worry. "Baby," she whispered, pressing her palm against the glass partition, "you're playing with fire." Marcus matched his hand to hers. "No, Mama, I'm building a furnace. And when they called court back into session, Marcus Johnson walked in with his head high and his fists unclenched for the first time in weeks, because he'd seen the flicker of doubt in Winslow's eyes, the nervous tick in Vance's left eyelid. They'd thought this would be just another day in the machine, feeding a black boy, get out a conviction. But Marcus, he was the wrench in the gears. The courtroom lights flickered as the bailiff announced the third day of trial, and Oman Marcus Johnson chose to believe in he entered without shackles today. The judge's begrudging concession after yesterday's fireworks, his borrowed blazer, still smelled like mothballs, but the jury no longer saw a defendant. They saw something else, something dangerous. Prosecutor Vance knew it too. Dark circles bruised his under eyes, his usually pristine collar wrinkled. He clutched a manila folder like it contained holy scripture. "Your Honor," he said, voice sandpaper rough, "the state calls Metro PD Forensics Supervisor Angela Gutierrez." A wiry woman in her 50s took the stand, her lab coat stark against the courtroom's mahogany. Marcus watched her fingers chapped from chemicals. No wedding ring tapped Morse code rhythms on the rail. "Vance, Ms. Gutierrez, you processed Alexis's fingerprint evidence." Gutierrez and correct. Vance and the defendant's prints matched those on the steering wheel. Gutierrez avoiding Marcus's gaze. "They did." Marcus's pen froze mid-note a lie. He'd never touched that wheel. Vance strutted toward the jury. "No further questions." The judge sighed. "Cross-examination." Marcus stood slowly. He didn't approach the witness yet. Just let the silence stretch until Gutierrez's knee began bouncing. "Marcus, Ms. Gutierrez, how many points of comparison did you use to match my prints?" Gutierrez: 12. Standard protocol. Marcus, nodding. "And the FBI requires how many for court testimony?" Gutierrez: and 12. Marcus: "Yet your report only lists 8. A juror gasped. Gutierrez's throat worked like she'd swallowed glass. Marcus: "Gentle, who told you to falsify the match?" Vance, lurching up. "Objection. Assumes facts, not Judge Winslow." "Overruled. Answer the question." Gutierrez stared at Marcus's tie, his mother's clip-on from her paralegal days. When she spoke, it was barely audible. Gutierrez was instructed to expedite the report. Marcus: "By whom?" Her eyes flicked to Vance. Just for a millisecond, Marcus walked to the evidence table. He lifted a sealed plastic bag, the Lexus's black box recorder. "Your Honor, I move to enter this into evidence." Vance's chair screeched. "That wasn't disclosed." Marcus: "Because the prosecution hid it. This records the exact time the car was stolen." He turned to Gutierrez. "Care to guess when?" She didn't need to. The jury saw the truth in her crumbling posture. Marcus, softly: "It was 9:47 p.m. I was already in custody at 9:38. Winslow's gavel hovered midair. The schoolteacher juror mouthed, "Oh my God." Then chaos. A crash echoed from the gallery. Raymond Whitaker, the Lexus's owner, had knocked over his chair. "I tried to tell them," he shouted, face mottled red. The security footage showed the real thief. Vance looked ready to vault the table. "Your Honor." Marcus didn't smile, didn't gloat, just pressed a thumb drive into the clerk's hand. "This is from the Quick Stop's cameras. Time-stamped proof. I was buying Skittles when the theft occurred." The screen flickered to life. There Marcus stood, hoodie damp from rain, counting change as the Lexus sat untouched outside. But it was the timestamp that drew gasps. 9:41 p.m. had arrested him at 9:38. The math didn't lie. Vance's polished facade cracked like old porcelain. "This proves nothing. The defendant could have Marcused over him, and this..." He slapped a subpoenaed email onto the projector. "It shows you," ordered the Quick Stop footage deleted. The courtroom erupted. Reporters scrambled for the door. Winslow's gavel blows went unheard over the din. Marcus waited. When the noise faded, he approached the bench close enough to smell Winslow's bourbon breath. "Your Honor, I move to dismiss all charges." For the first time in his career, Harold Winslow looked afraid. Not of Marcus, of the truth. The courtroom lights buzzed like hornets trapped in glass. Marcus Johnson stood motionless at the defense table, his palms pressed flat against the wood. The air smelled of sweat and stale coffee and something sharp of fear, but not his dart. Judge Winslow's chambers had been locked for 19 minutes. The jury hadn't even deliberated. They'd taken one look at the Quick Stop footage, at Vance's damning emails, at Officer Delgado's perjured testimony, and known. The bailiff's radio crackled. "All units, stand by." Then the door creaked open. Winslow emerged like a man walking to his own execution. His robe hung crookedly, revealing a coffee stain on his collar. The gavel trembled in his hand. Marcus didn't breathe. The Lexus owner, Raymond Whitaker, clutched a crucifix so tight it drew blood. Vance stared at his reflection in the polished table, watching the career he'd built evaporate. Winslow, hoarse: "The court has reviewed the evidence." A cell phone rang. No one moved to silence it. Winslow, ... including new evidence of prosecutorial misconduct. Delgado slumped in the gallery, snapped his head up. Marcus's mother mouthed a prayer. Against her knuckles, Winslow: "Quieter, Mr. Vance. Approach." The prosecutor staggered forward, his designer shoes scuffing like a chastened child's. The whispered exchange lasted 7 seconds. 7 seconds where the entire courtroom leaned in, reporters, jurors, even the stenographer. When Vance turned back, his face was the color of spoiled milk. Marcus to himself, "Here it comes." Winslow's sigh echoed through the microphone. "Winslow, case dismissed." With prejudice, the silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was the eye of the hurricane. Then chaos. Whitaker whooped, hugging a stunned juror. Reporters vaulted over benches. Delgado lunged for the exit, only to freeze at the sight of 2 internal affairs officers blocking the door. And Marcus, he simply sat down. The wood groaned beneath him as he folded forward, forehead touching the table. His shoulders didn't shake. No tears fell, just 3 slow breaths in out, in before he raised his head and met Winslow's gaze. The judge flinched up because Marcus Johnson wasn't smiling, wasn't cheering, just stared at him with the terrible patience of a landslide. "Marcus, softly, Your Honor. I'll be filing a Section 1983 lawsuit tomorrow. Expect the paperwork by 9. The gavel clattered from Winslow's hand. Asterisk. The spring rain smelled different this time. Clean. Marcus tilted his face to it as he climbed the courthouse steps, his Harvard law hoodie dampening at the shoulders. The same bailiff who'd once cuffed him now held the door open. Bailiff grunting, "Counselor." Inside the halls were quieter, fewer whispers, more side-eyed glances. At Department 43, a new judge presided, a black woman with silver braids and a penchant for holding prosecutors' feet to the fire. Marcus's client today, a 16-year-old girl accused of shoplifting. The evidence was flimsy, the cop's testimony full of holes. Sound familiar? As Marcus unpacked his briefcase, his phone buzzed. A text from his mother. "Proud of you. Now go make Em cry." He smiled across the aisle. The prosecutor, a fresh-faced Ada who hadn't been part of Vance's old regime, dropped a stack of files. "Ada, nervous, Mr. Johnson. Could we, discuss a plea?" Marcus adjusted his tie, the same clip his mother had given him 3 years ago. "Marcus, let's discuss dismissal instead." Outside, the rain eased. Somewhere beyond the clouds, the sun waited its turn.